Hello, dear fan of our videos. Please give us a like if you liked our content, and subscribe to be among the first to receive notifications about new exciting stories. Your positive feedback fuels us with new ideas, and your support through subscription helps us to keep going and develop further. Little Sins, Chapter 4. When I walked in, the girls were sitting in the family room arguing. There was no anger in their voices, just disagreement. I didn't have time to hear anything. They were silent when I entered the house. They both got up and met me in the hallway. Kelly approached me first. Well, isn't this the protector and provider coming home after a long day in the trenches? She held out her lips for a kiss, and I accepted it. My wife moved into my arms, demanding better. Get dressed and join us. We did some shopping today. I think you'll like it. I got out of the suit and made myself comfortable. When I returned to the family room, it was empty. Wendy? I called out. Just a moment, my love. I'll be right there. She came out a few seconds later, dressed in the very thing you're thinking of, with a beer in her hand. I used my credit card today. I hope you're not angry. I laughed. Dressed like that, you have to come up to me every time you do something I might not like. It's hard to get mad at you when all the blood from my head is flowing below my waist. Kelly walked in with a tray of appetizers, dressed in a white version of the same outfit. She looked amazing. Wow, you two have one hell of a combination, I remarked. Wendy rubbed herself against me. Do you like it? You're not mad? Hell no. Buying underwear will never piss me off. She laughed. Remember, you said that. Drink up, we'll be right back. A few minutes later, they were back. This time, my wife was in red and Kelly was in pink. They both wore heels, red for my wife and white for Kelly. I've decided that I don't dress like this often enough for you, Wendy began. This is for when we go out. I bought 2 more sets that will remain a surprise. I hope you won't be mad. We did spend quite a bit. The truth was that I was making good money. We could afford it. I worked for the same company for 7 years and grew with it. When I started, we only had 6 people and I was an intern. Now we had over 100 people. I had stock options and they started 2 years ago. We weren't rich, but a few thousand didn't bother us at all. Worth every penny, I told her honestly. She smiled and turned around slowly. The shoes are new too, she said nervously. I laughed. Wendy, you don't spend enough on yourself. I don't mind, and we can afford it. Treat yourself once in a while. The shoes cost over $150, she admitted. I don't care if they cost $1,000. They're gorgeous on you, she pouted. We could have spent over $1,000. Come here, sweetheart, I said, opening my arms. She came over and sat on my lap. I didn't mean to get carried away, but we were having such a good time, she said softly. I put my arms around her. I love you. What's mine is yours. So we can spend a little less on our next vacation. It won't be a problem. We'll still be able to pay our bills. The baby monitor on the table beside me turned on, and I heard a fussy grunt that soon turned to a cry. Wendy jumped up. Your baby's awake. I'll get her. She got off my lap and walked away in those cute heels. Kelly took her place on my lap. I'm sorry we bought so much. She's out of her mind. I'll pay you back, she said nervously. No, it won't. Consider it part of the tip. She nodded. Why are you both so nice to me? We love you, silly. You did a good thing this weekend. You may have saved our marriage. The two of you would get back together. It was quite obvious what you feel for each other. I pulled her to me, cuddling her, and heard Wendy talking to our girl on the monitor, cooing over her. It sounded like she was changing her diaper. Maybe. I did a dangerous thing, and you could have done worse. But you decided to help. It was a very kind and generous act. I hope you realize that and what it means to both of us. She leaned against me. I need to leave soon. I can't stay here much longer. Her words hurt me, shocked me. You can't stand being here? She shook her head. No, every moment I'm here, every time I see you together, it hurts. It'll make it even harder to get back to what I'm supposed to be doing. What exactly do you have to do? You know, I need to take care of myself, and I don't have any education or skills. I need to have a roof over my head and to eat. I lifted her up a little so she could reach into her pocket. I pulled out a bank envelope and handed it to her. For the weekend. I pulled out a second envelope and held it out to her. For the rest of the week. You won't have to worry about a roof and food for at least a few days. She looked into the envelope. Here, there's a lot of money here. You deserve it. How much? She asked, counting out the bills. 1,000. Another 1,000 if you stay until the end of the week. She closed the envelope. No, it's too much. I laughed. You're not very good at the business side of things, are you? We'll definitely have to work on that. You should have asked for more. I pulled out the last envelope and put it in her hands. 200 a night, remember? That's $1,000 for 5 days. But I'm buying your days too, 100 a day. Her eyes clouded over. Why? Do I need to do it again? Because I want to, and I can. This should be enough. She slid off my lap as Wendy returned with Ginny in her arms. My wife put my daughter in my arms, and I watched her happy, smiling face. I loved putting my finger in her hand and watching her grasp it. She was getting stronger, and she had a great grip. I kissed her head, inhaling the scent of her fresh skin, that irresistible baby smell. How is my little angel doing? I whispered. I looked back at Wendy. She saw me looking and smiled. I'm sorry, lover. Your daughter is hungry, and it's feeding time. She's entitled to them for a few more months. Kelly stood next to my chair and watched me with my girlfriend. She shifted nervously from foot to foot. Can I hold her? I picked my baby girl up and kissed her forehead one more time, and then held her out to Kelly, who bent down and took her. She held her in her arms, rocking her. She's beautiful, she whispered. I laughed. Of course. You've seen her mother. She walked over and handed it to my wife, who adjusted her position and then moved her breasts into Jeannie's hungry mouth. I looked up and saw that a dark cloud had passed over Kelly's face. My wife seemed to notice it too. She looked upset. What's wrong? Kelly shook her head. Nothing. That's not true. Something's upset you. You can tell me. Wendy objected. Kelly shook her head. It's no big deal. Wendy gave him a hard time. After everything we've talked about? Go on. Kelly crossed her arms, looking at my wife. I'm angry, okay? I look at that little girl and everything you have, at the way your husband treats you, and it just pisses me off that you risked leaving it all behind for some stupid bastards. If you only knew how good you had it, try living on the streets for a while. God, how could you? Kelly turned and ran out of the room crying, and I looked at my wife, who looked shocked. She didn't mean it. I told her quietly. Tears came to Wendy's eyes and began to roll down her cheeks. Yes, and she's right. I've almost lost everything. I don't even know why. Shh, you didn't. That's what matters now. It's our family too. She nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her palm. I'm going to make you proud of me again. You won't regret it. I stood up and leaned over my wife, cradling her head against my chest. I'm always proud of you, and I'll never regret it, as long as you're by my side. I don't deserve you, she sobbed. We deserve each other. We are lucky to have each other. Most people aren't lucky enough to meet and fall in love with their soulmate. We have the best marriage I know. I don't want to hear you say that anymore. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be where we are now. I looked up, and Kelly walked into the room, dressed just as she had been when we first met. She had a bag in her hands. She placed 2 envelopes in front of me. I'm really sorry. I can't do this. I hope you have a wonderful life together. I've called a cab, and I'll be waiting out front. I was stunned, and she headed for the door before I could say a word. Don't let her go, John. You have to stop her. Wendy begged me. I can't. She's an adult. I can't make her stay. Please, you have to try. She won't survive in there. She won't. I know she won't. Something terrible is going to happen. Can you live with that? I can't. I couldn't stop her, but maybe I could talk to her. I'll see what I can do, I told my wife, then ran after Kelly. She was sitting on the porch, curled up in a ball, holding her bag in front of her. Come on in. At least I can take you where you need to go. I've already called a cab, she said. It'll take at least 10 minutes to get here. Wendy will pay him. Go back to the house and let me drive you, please. She was silent for a moment, then nodded and stood up slowly. I opened the door for her. She walked slowly into the house and then turned back to the family room. She walked over to Wendy. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said what I did. We both know it wasn't right. Wendy nodded slowly. It's all right. It's mostly true. I didn't think I was cheating, but I should have known better. And I did. I risked everything. It was a stupid, horrible thing to do. Thanks for everything, Kelly replied. You didn't have to treat me so well. It was wonderful to see you together, happy. I'll remember it for a long time. I had somehow forgotten that people could be like you. Do you have to go? Pleaded Wendy. Yes, I'm sorry. She leaned over and kissed Wendy on the cheek, and then kissed Ginny on the top of her head. You two need to work it out. At least for her sake, okay? Don't ever hurt her. Wendy nodded and started crying again. Kelly turned and walked through the kitchen to the garage door. I grabbed my keys from the hook in the kitchen and followed her. We were silent for the first few minutes. She didn't look like she wanted to talk, and I wasn't going to force the issue. When I got back on Georgia Avenue and headed south, I asked, "Where am I taking you?" She took her time answering. "It's only a few blocks from where you picked me up, if you don't mind." "No problem." I left her alone with her thoughts for a while longer before I spoke. "You won't change your mind? We'd like you to stay." She shook her head. "You're a great guy, John." "But I can't. It's just not right." I tried to talk her into coming back with me, told her it would be good for Wendy, that I wanted her there, that she could still come back in a week with a little more money. She didn't argue, let me entertain you instead. I grinned. I think I can be talked into it. She snatched Ginny out of the pen. "Let me feed her and put her down for the night. Then we can start having fun." We made it 4:30 before she got up. "Give me a few minutes and then you can join me in the bedroom." I watched a few more games, but by then the game was pretty much over. I turned off the TV and checked the doors and lights. Wendy was waiting for me in one of her new outfits. She laid me down on the bed. She turned me on properly and continued to do so for a couple more minutes, then stood up, smiling. I was looking forward to repaying the favor she had so generously given me. Within a couple minutes, she was already begging me to do it to her. "I like it, baby, but I need more. Please," she was saying. I happily agreed, and we got down to some good old-fashioned business, dirty and sweaty, in several positions. She grabbed me and pulled me in just like a cigarette. I was a little surprised. Normally, she didn't like to do this after I was inside, but at this point, she had no problem. We finished our game. She smiled. "You didn't want to end the game of me?" "I love doing it, but I know how much you like the way we've completed it now." She grinned. "You know me so well. How about in the future you complete the game the first time for me in one place and the second time in another?" I smiled, leaned over and kissed her. "You're hinting that you'd like to go again." "Let me give you more than a hint," she said, and pushed me back. We did it easier this time, and I took it easy on her, taking my time before finishing the game. Afterward, she hugged me. "I like this so much." I kissed her again, slowly and lovingly. "Imagine how good it feels," I told her. "What do you say about making this a regular thing?" she asked. "I think I can live with that," I told her. She got up and brought out a washcloth. I thought she was going to wipe us both, but she put it between her legs. It was something new. I hated to admit it, but it was a little alarming. "I thought you didn't like it?" "I was an idiot. I like the flavor. You don't seem to mind my taste, and you know what? I think I do too. I like washing you afterward. I'll do it a lot more often, I promise. I hope you don't mind?" I laughed. "Absolutely not." She crawled over to me. "Kelly and I talked about this. I never realized I was only doing it to you at the beginning of our sessions. I could at least wipe you with a washcloth and do it again. I know we're doing great, but I want it to be even better. Anything you want to try, anything you want to do, please ask me. I want to be everything to you. Never be embarrassed or afraid. The worst I can say is that I didn't like it very much afterward." "How about you? Do you want to do something?" "I want to taste every day for the rest of my life. You already know what I like best." "I will see what I can do to make you happy. Remember that the same applies to you. Anything you want to try, I'm happy to listen." She wrapped her arms around me, snuggling against my side. "Why haven't we ever talked about this before?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Didn't think we'd have to, I guess." She nodded. "I am too. I'm content with our life. I hope you are too. Yes, I love you. I think we got a little lost during and after the pregnancy. I'm sorry if that's what made you do what you did. She shook her head. No. I mean, maybe that was a small part of it, but for the most part I was just stupid and took bad advice. I didn't really want it or need it. I gave in to it. I was drunk, but that's a lousy excuse. I won't do it again. If I get in trouble, I'll talk to you first. I promise. Me too. We were silent. I tried to sleep, but I kept seeing Kelly standing on the corner, leaning against strange cars. Are you thinking of her? Asked Wendy. I didn't hesitate. Yes. I hope she's okay. Me too. The next few days were very good. On Tuesday, she went out again. She spent a lot of time on the phone. I asked her if Kelly had called, but she said she hadn't. I got my package from online orders and Wendy didn't bother to ask me about it. She seemed to be giving me some space. At the same time, I was still worried about us. She gave away secrets in the evening and then seemed to pay me back every night. She was affectionate and eager to do her best for me. I wanted my Wendy back, not the broken, scared woman. I needed her to know I loved her, and she didn't have to constantly try to make amends, cooking my favorite meals, cleaning up after me, offering me non-stop nights out. Okay, she could keep doing that, bringing me drinks after work. I left her one rose, no reason. A little note in her purse saying I was thinking of her. A bottle of my favorite perfume, just for fun. Wendy was hot as a firecracker when she got home, and I happily indulged her 3 times. She grinned as she fell asleep in my arms. Wendy looked happier than ever when she got home Thursday after her night out, and we made love again as we did every day. Every night I saw a new outfit. Thursday's outfit didn't last long, and I was a little embarrassed that in a burst of emotion, I tore her something. She giggled and assured me that she didn't mind having to store for new clothes. She'd even buy some spare ones. It was almost 1 o'clock in the morning when the phone rang. It woke me up, and I was upset, wondering what could have caused it to ring so late. I hoped everything was okay in our families. I picked up the phone. Hello? John, replied an excited voice. Kelly, is that you? Are you okay? I asked, pulling myself up on the bed. Wendy sat up and looked at me nervously. I've been arrested. Can you bail me out? I'll pay you back. Where are you? She told me where she was and that for a first offense, she could face a $500 fine and up to 90 days in jail. I'll be right there. Don't say anything, don't sign anything. I'll be there as soon as I can. Okay, thanks. I didn't know who else to call. You did the right thing, Angel. Hang in there. I'm coming for you. I stood up and started to get dressed. I brushed off the questions I knew Wendy would have. She's been arrested. I'm going after her. Bring her home, John. I nodded. I will. I'll be back as soon as I can. In the car, I pulled out my cell phone and called my lawyer and friend, Jim Friedland. When he finished reprimanding me for waking him up at such an ungodly hour, he gave me the number of a law firm specializing in harassment. Are you in jail? He asked me. It's not me. It's a family friend. I see. David's firm is very good. Good luck. I hung up and made a second call. The man who answered the phone assured me that he would take care of everything. I stopped and gave him my credit card number over the phone. I told him how I was referred, gave him Jim's name, and mentioned a partner whose name was listed among the firms. He said they would take care of it, and everything would be in order by the time I got to the prison. I didn't know how things worked, and should have been more concerned. Usually, before you can go before a judge, you have to serve time in jail before being arraigned, or pay a fine and agree to the charges. By the time I got to where Kelly was, she was already on a deferred arraignment agreement as a first-time offender. She would go free after passing drug testing, doing community service, getting a travel restriction, and probation. Kelly was utterly confused and threw herself into my arms, crying. That was terrible, John. Terrible. Shh. It's going to be okay. Come on, let's get you home. She said nothing as I drove back to my house, not her apartment or wherever she was staying. I explained the terms of her release, and she thanked me repeatedly. I didn't bother to ask her how she got into trouble. She didn't offer an explanation. She asked me how Wendy and Ginny were doing, and I opened up to her, told her about what was going on, about Wendy going out on a date, and even about our love life. "You trust her, don't you?" she asked. "Yes, at least I'm trying to. I have to admit, I'm more than a little worried. It's not easy." "I know. If she's been out 3 times, then it's almost over. Do you two get along?" "Better than ever." I heard her stomach rumble, and I laughed. She pouted. "This isn't funny. It's almost 3 in the morning." "I know. I'm going to stop by the 24-hour Burger King. I don't think we have enough food at home to feed you if you're going to be like you were last time." She grinned. "No, I just don't like to eat before I go to work. There's a late-night McDonald's where I usually go after work." "Burger King okay? Perfect." She ate the last part of the drive and had a Whopper and fries before we got to the house. She laughed when we pulled up in front of the house. "You always feed me so good. I wouldn't mind a kid's meal myself." "Nothing is too good for my girl," I teased, closing the garage door behind us. As we entered the house, she suddenly became nervous. "Come on, let's go. Wendy will want to see you. She talks about you every day. She's so excited." "She doesn't have to worry about me. I'm already a big girl." "We're both worried about you. Come on, we'll say hello quickly, and you can take a bath and go to bed." She walked with me to the bedroom, and Wendy woke up. She jumped up and hugged Kelly until they were both crying. I lost sight of them as they went into the bathroom together. Ginny was fussy, but we were still working on getting her used to sleeping through the night, so I let her. She didn't start crying, and that was good. I always had a hard time. At times like that, I wanted to go to her, but Wendy always reminded me that I couldn't. More than once, I spent the night sitting outside her door listening to her cry. I'd probably cry myself if I wasn't too damn manly for that sort of thing. The girls took their time, and I was surprised when they woke me up and told me to move over. I moved to the edge of the bed, and Kelly was between us, again without everything on my bed and Wendy on the other side. It was late, so I hugged her, putting my arm around her waist. "I'm glad you're home, Angel," I whispered, and kissed her cheek before I fell asleep. I woke up to my wife's morning little gift, and Kelly sleeping next to me with her hand on my chest. Hell of a nice way to wake up. Kelly woke up near the finish line and looked down. "Lucky girl," she whispered, then giggled. "Lucky," I reminded her. "Yes, it is. I'm sorry to bother you." I tilted her chin up and kissed her gently. I could no longer speak, as Wendy decided it was time for me to end this game. The kiss became more intense, more passionate as we ended the game. "Do you want to help?" she asked Kelly. "It's your fault there are so many," she said, laughing. Kelly pulled her lips away from mine. She lowered herself onto the bed and accepted Wendy's kiss before starting to clean up. I was surprised and quite pleased with their work. Wendy sat back and laughed. 3 times last night and 2 more times this morning? What are you, 18 again?" "No, just a very lucky man." She grinned and pulled her robe on, and Kelly continued. Wendy watched for a few seconds. "I'll leave you to take care of this while I make breakfast," she said. Kelly stopped. "Oh no, I can't," she said. "You helped him become this way. The least you can do is accept it. I'm exhausted trying to take care of the beast. I have a baby to feed and breakfast to make. You have 15 minutes before he starts packing." She left without waiting for an answer. Kelly hesitantly looked up at me. "John?" "Don't look at me, I wasn't expecting that," I laughed. She looked down, and her hand slowly closed. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "You have to. Soon. Time is running out." She looked back at me, then kneeled down. "Are you sure?" "Please," I told her. She really was. It was different. She was doing it just like Wendy did the first time. She took her time. For 10 minutes, she teased and tormented me, checking her watch regularly. Then she spent 5 minutes showing off her skills, and in the 15th minute she made me complete the game once more. She smiled and nodded at her watch. Then, without a word, she got up and walked out of the bedroom. I shaved and showered, doing all the usual morning ablutions. I put on my monkey suit and joined my wife and Kelly in the kitchen. They laughed and chatted, and I received a big hug and kiss from each of them. Wendy laughed. "How was your morning, dear?" "Excellent, thank you for asking." She smiled. I tried it a second time, thanks to Sweet Cheeks. I think my morning was excellent too. Kelly giggled. Me too. I was having breakfast with an 18-year-old girl. The mother of my child was sitting in her robe flaunting her charms, and my daughter was sitting in the corner making cute baby noises. I almost didn't try the bacon and egg sandwich. We're going to run some errands today. I think I'm going to take Ginny to her mom's. Will you be home in time? I can guarantee it, I promised. Wendy laughed. Does it have anything to do with the pretty girl sitting at the table? It has to do with having the best wife in the world. No more late nights if I can help it. I want to spend all my free time with the love of my life. She stood up and kissed me. You know flattery doesn't work on me. Liar, you know perfectly well that you are. She kissed me again, giggling. Good, that's the way it is. You're going to be very lucky tonight. I pulled out of her loving clutches and gave Kelly a quick kiss before heading over to my daughter. I picked her up in my arms and kissed her, blowing on her tummy. Be good for your mommy, Angel, I told her, knowing full well that she didn't understand a word I was saying. She cooed for me, and I thought life couldn't get any better. Do we have a spending limit? Asked Wendy as I walked past her. It doesn't matter what credit card you have. Have fun. Think of me more often. No way, I'll be thinking about you all the time. She laughed. Work went on as usual until about 3:30 p.m. At that moment, Paul walked into my office. I felt a shiver run down my spine and my blood pressure rose. He closed the door. I clenched my fists under the table. Audience, there comes a moment of dazzling spinning of our characters' destinies. As Chapter 4 of the story unfolds, we reach a point of emotional intensity that inevitably entails awakening and change. Like a pendulum balancing between past and future, John faces a difficult choice. What is the next step to take? How to weave together personal feelings and commitments to family and those who have lost their way? See how the protagonist's compassion and commitment collide with the sharp rock of reality, where questions of guilt and responsibility inevitably arise. Kelly, a girl from John and Wendy's past, is back in their lives, and now they are challenged to define the boundaries of help and understanding. Issues of trust concern not only Kelly, but also Wendy, John's wife, who is eager to prove her loyalty, but also has her own secret agenda. What challenges still await them? How will traveling through spirals of error affect their future together? Don't miss the opportunity to discover where their story takes them next. Join us on Patreon for access to the full story, where the most intimate and candid moments of this drama lie. Stay tuned for our sequel, which promises to be more powerful and reveal the deepest corners of people's hearts.